Hello, this is Henry Hemphill. I'm here to talk really quick about Planetary Resources, the company that I was researching. Um, Now, y'all know that I've been really big into SpaceX on all the things I've posted. So I wanted to do something a little different, but still in the same vein. And this one is an interesting one. Um, Planetary Resources is what they would call a asteroid mining company. At least that's what they're trying to do. It's founded back in 2009, and with the concept of building toward eventually mining asteroids for the wealth that's found in them, which is not only material goods such as platinum, gold, or even just iron and nickel and stuff to build in space with, but water. Water is a huge resource up in space. Right now, we have an issue in developing past Earth, per se, because of fuel. And it's not that getting around in space is hard. There's nothing there. It's easy to move. That's fine. It takes very little fuel to move all the way out to Mars. The issue is just how hard it is to get that fuel into space. Right now, we all live under gravity. Gravity is always pulling us down, and which creates what's known in physics terms as a gravity well. Breaking through the Earth's gravity well to get to space is a tremendously expensive process, which SpaceX has done very well about reducing that by reusing the rockets. The issue is fuel. You're talking about something that requires an enormous amount of fuel to lift the tons of goods and everything we need to create a spacefaring civilization through the gravity, even just to LEO, which is known as low Earth orbit. Basically what that means, and it's approximate here, for every kilogram of stuff you're lifting, and that includes fuel to move between the planets, including all the way to Mars, or even out of LEO just to the moon, every kilogram of that costs 50 kilograms of fuel. So if you want to lift a ton of stuff, you have to use 50 tons of fuel just to get there. And that's not even that's 1 ton of stuff. That's not including the fuel you need to move that ton of stuff to the moon or to Mars. And every ton of that stuff that's used requires another 50 tons of fuel. And the rocket that holds it, every ton of that rocket needs 50 tons of fuel. It's an enormous, wildly expanding, exponential even, incredibly expensive issue that faces space. It's why we haven't basically become what we always thought we would, the Star Trek, the going to different planets. It's pure cost. Now, take for instance, what they're trying to do here is that they're trying to mine in space the fuel they need to move around our planetary solar system. So, when you're doing that, you're removing the tons of fuel required to be lifted. If you don't need 10 tons of fuel to move that 1 ton of stuff around, then you don't need the 500 tons of fuel that was required to move that initial 10 tons of other fuel. It's weird because it's like how expensive it is to get fuel into space makes space impossible for investment, real serious investment. This is where they can change things. Now, they have issues. The issues really comes into investment. They were a little ahead of time. They were before SpaceX really took off. In fact, the founder actually helped with the X Prize, and he's the chairman of the Rocket Racing Incorporated. But they had run into recently some issues with funding when they didn't get a partnership with a mining corporation in time, and they had to let a few people go. And they're a small company. And what they're really relying on is basically a star shot. They have a lot of people, big people, interested in them, but they need to make something that's going to push them into the realm of, okay, this is something I want to drop $500 million into because I know that there's trillions of dollars in profits available to me. And it's there. Which is why my idea is to pull from another very inventive idea that just came out in the last couple of years. It's an item called, an engine, if you will, called the EM drive. The EM drive is unique because in most rocket engines, even what's called a photon engine, something goes out the back, your fuel, and causes propulsion. A gas, if you will. Gas goes out the back, you go forward. The EM drive is interesting because they're researching it right now with NASA and China. Both been finding some very interesting results with using electric power in this electromagnetic cavitance that some people think is actually manipulating what's called quantum particles. What quantum particles are believed to basically come in and out of existence. Basically, they're real, then they're not real. It's weird. When you get into quantum physics, things become a little strange. But what their belief is that this EM drive creates a magnetic field which catches these particles that pop in and out and then moves them, which creates thrust. The thing that makes it impressive is that they're not using these particles. They don't need a supply of them. They're just throwing them out the back, which then they disappear. And what happens is you have a propellantless propulsion system, which means that your water can be used for more important things, or technologies like the satellites that just need fuel. So there's a lot of things going for this item. It uses very tiny thrust, though, so it's not really good for space flight back and forth between Mars just yet, or to Jupiter. It's good for long-term expeditions, exactly like what Planetary Resources is looking at. They're looking at long-term satellites that are not only going to find asteroids, land on them, develop them, move them even, and bring in resources. In fact, using what's known as a cycler method, which is one option, using gravity plus a very low thrust to continuously go back and forth between 2 points in the solar system, they could use this new technology to essentially, one, build enormous amount of buzz. Every really weird science geek like me follows stuff like this because it has such a huge potential for changing space flight. And the second thing is that buzz creates investment, both private and government investment in them, which is exactly what they need right now. They need that extra money to get and break through to the point where they're actually mining. And once they do that, then we might be living in a very different world, or should I say, solar system. I appreciate everything you've done for us. I really enjoyed taking this class. If anybody has any questions, just let me know. Have a wonderful night.